edition of the MarTech webinar that we started a couple of months ago. As you all know, we have had some amazing speakers in the panel before, and in fact, even today. Uh, we started with a couple of very important topics: how marketing technology is affecting the future of marketing, how AI is leveraging it. We then went on to delve upon, what are the essential skills that are required today, to survive this MarTech revolution. And I think today's topic, all of this has brought us to today's topic. I think it is very important. How brands are actually tapping consumer psychology and leading to personalization. There's a thin layer of ethical concerns to it as well as a lot of potential. So again, good afternoon, everyone, to the audience. We had about 250 registrations for this one, and I am expecting about 150 people to join us live. We have about 80 people who have joined us live, expecting another 100 or so in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We will also wait for Mr. Kumar to join, but again, let's start. So today's session is titled Inside the Mind: How India's Brands Are Tapping Consumer Psychology with MarTech. We are no longer just targeting demographics or designing funnels. We are decoding mindsets, motivations, and um, behavioral triggers. And to help us unpack this fascinating intersection of MarTech and human psychology, we have amazing leaders who have joined us today. Uh, uh, Mr. Anand Thakur is a veteran, head of technology and automation at Group M. Thank you for joining us. We have Lucky Saini, who is the CMO of Fires. It's a fintech app, quite known throughout the country, thanks to, of course, efforts of Mr. Saini. We also have Richa Jaggi, who is the co-founder and CMO of Oshad. It's a very unique company, and I'll let Richa explain what it does. We will also be joined by Avi Kumar, who is the CMO of Ferns and Petals, shortly. So my first question, and open this to the panel. Consumer psychology is not new. When I was young, we would see ads which would directly tap into, my psychology and psychology of people around me. So it's not new. We have had jingles like Ghadi detergent, Nirma, Vico Vajradanti, which would really tap into consumer psychology and attract you to that product. But we have been seeing that MarTech has completely changed the way we look at uh, advertisement and marketing. So my first question is, since consumer psychology isn't new, how has MarTech changed the way brands actually interpret it and act on it? And I'll start with you, Mr. Thakur.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me, Bridge. It's been a pleasure here. So I would put it this way is the one which you said before the conversation that this is the fifth edition and you already have covered something from an AI ML point of view. And now the strategy has changed. It is not only MarTech or AdTech. The strategy is talking with the technology. And this is how the Group M as an ecosystem is working towards the AI and ML technology, which has a huge package with respect to data, the kind of data that we play on day in, day out. So how the AI is transforming the world nowadays with respect to MarTech is like we are doing hyper personalization through an AI and data. We are doing a lot of data mining at our place. We are doing a lot of predictive analysis using different tools in order to train our data. There is a huge capacity from the engineer's knowledge and engineer's focus point of view when it comes to a predictive analysis. We are doing a lot of behavioral targeting as well because since we are data rich, we can make sure that how the data is getting utilized, where the data is getting utilized, It helps us to identify our needs. It create a proactive campaigns with respect to the requirement of the client. It improves your ROI, focusing on high intent on the segmentation. It also optimize ad delivery, which also works with time, and it also works with the placements. We are doing a lot of things with respect to emotional resistance, emotional resonance using sentimental analysis. This sentimental analysis is basically make sure that how are you creating your deep dive analysis, creating a deep emotional connection with the audience. That makes a lot of difference when you are doing your sentimental analysis. And when we are talking about the brands are very, the brand is like the heart of the brand is the name, how the brand is shaping up, and this emotional analysis with respect to the data with the backend, which help us to identify that how we are doing that deep analysis with respect to our audience and the brand. So the sentimental plays a wonderful role in handshaking with data and the brand. It enables the crisis management, or you can say that it also helps in terms of brand responding to real time, because when the brand has to go on a scale, it has to have a responding mechanism as well. And every now and then it has been triggered that there is a requirement, there is a assessment, or there is a need that we have to respond on a particular change which is happening in the market. So this emotional intelligence plays again, it with the sentimental analysis and the emotional analysis, it makes a lot of difference when we are talking with the data. So earlier days, it was not a case that we are talking with the data on an air, and we used to say that by pulling some Excel files from the different platform, making it in the shape and the size that I wish to, and then decoding that in front of the marketing team, saying that this is how it has to be. But now there is a lot of information with respect to the data. There is a lot of information with respect to the machine learning. There are different algorithms that has been used and consumed here, which gives enormous information to a brand, and they can utilize these resources to make them available around the world.
Uh, I'll come back to you again. I mean, a lot of data is available, but what we are seeing today is not artificial intelligence at scale. We are seeing automation a lot, right? And I'll come to you, Mr. Saini. Uh, you know, I go to Blinkit and I buy something. Next time I go, it starts suggesting me the same thing. That's automation. It's not artificial intelligence. Now, if it truly would understand my emotion, and if it truly would understand my sentimental value based on previous behavior, it will probably recommend me a lot more things which, would be on my brain scan at that time. So, you know, are we really there? Are we jumping the gun by saying that AI is now assessing our emotional intelligence, where most companies today are just um, fringing on automation?
Thanks, Pej. I think you made an important point, and I would probably quote a few examples to take it one more step, right? I think what you rightly quoted is that the place where you came from is recommendation engine, right? Which is a lot more automated today based on past behavior, browsing history, purchase history, and shopping history, right? But if you really look at it, segmentation point of view, say if we have gone beyond just the demographics and even usage segmentation, I think now we are moving into intent based segmentation, correct? And that's where psychology comes in, right? So I think now with advanced companies you'll start to see that people are creating, let's say at our company for example, right, we believe in financial personalities and not just demographics, right? And so similarly I think other companies would create specific segments based on usage, right, or intent. Now if you're an e-commerce purchaser, you would know that there is a certain kind of a purchase history, there's a buying behavior, there's a browse behavior, right? And there's just like, you how do you interact with the customer support, what's the kind of interactions in your browse behavior. All of this combined I think would create a more emotional, I would say a little more finer personality versus demographic segmentation. And I think if you use that well, then you can go beyond just product recommendations, right? And I think that's where I'm coming from, that automation, the trick is actually not to make the automation look like automation, because moment the automation looks like automation and I think bot becomes like very evident, then the psychology of the human brain and the fact that we are customers are humans and we would like to be talked as humans, right? That kind of takes a backseat. I think so. That will be a very critical understanding. How do we use NLP? How do we use more human training, right, to be able to kind of talk to customers in a way that they still get the point of automation, but they still feel that there is a human understanding involved, right? I think even personalization, if you look at Anand spoke about it a little bit back, that personalization is happening at scale, it's happening at micro segmentation. In fintech, for example, there's a lot of micro movements that happen, right? And those micro movements need real understanding, and therefore the nudges become super personalized. For
Hmm.
example, if you are regularly browsing a certain kind of a stock or a certain kind of an ETF or a certain kind of a category on a fintech app, right?
Hmm.
You on a certain occasion, right? You become like a kind of a behavior that you demonstrate, and then you can use those micro movements to drive nudges that seem very, what should I say, personalized, right? Which
Hmm.
means that I am looking for that kind of outcome from what's going on and from how I'm browsing. Can I give you nudges through tech, which is CRM or push notifications, or in fact even post that, right? When you've gone outside the app and you would like to, same trigger happens later, you would like to
Hmm.
remind me that the same trigger has happened, and now you something interesting could be out there for you to take, right? So I would say automation is probably 10 years back, right? Today we are actually in hyper personalized automation, which should be human like. And I think that's where a lot more tech needs to get into intent based segmentation versus just looking at RFM or the usual formats of segmentation, which are more demographic, where we club people without really knowing their finer nuances. I think that's what probably I think is where we should be headed.
Hmm. So, Richa, I would want to ask another general question to you, but I mean, let's start with what Osher does. I think it's a very unique concept. And with that, I mean, if you would also throw some light on how, rather than going into sentiment, I'll first ask you, how are you marketing it and how are you reaching out to your audience?
Of course. So thank you everyone and Bridge for today's session. It's been very insightful. I'm already making notes because I think it's never too late to learn new things and everything and everyone else's perspective. But here's my 2 cents. Oshad is a startup where we're selling medical cannabis. And that in itself should, get everyone's radars up because firstly, there's a lot of stigma attached. Secondly, it is prescription based. And thirdly, we're a startup where our supply chain is very expensive, so it is a premium product. So already I have three things that are not working in my favor. And the fact that we're a startup, the fourth thing also comes in where the budgets are very low. So all of the hyper personalization, like of course I'm ex-corporate, so I have spent like about 11 years, the last four before Oshad being as a marketing head of a very, very big international company. So I had all the budgets in my, disposal from HubSpot to hyper segmentation, everything that I could do to coming to Zilch and starting from scratch where, our only data that is there for me to work on is primary data because this is a category also which is new. So that's point 0.5. Right. So how am I working with it? What I'm doing with it, I'll get to that in a secondary place. But firstly, I'll tell you why we have Oshad in this space. Firstly, we come under the Ayurvedic section in terms of the licensing that we have. So it is a medicine, it is a plant-based medicine. And as you can see, the influx and the whole boom in the wellness industry. Oshad is pretty much a part of the wellness industry by adding one more layer of efficacy attached to it that we're just not talking woo-woo science. We actually have clinical data supporting, the efficacy of medical cannabis, what it can do for sleep, insomnia, anxiety, arthritis, cancer, even, for pets, for humans alike, right? So it's a product which was much needed, but here I have to gap between the need because every customer I know who we've mapped for Osher has some or the other lifestyle related issue, whether it is, stress or anxiety or sleep or even deeper issues which are medically, more severe, like, inflammation or cancer or arthritis. So everyone is here, but they don't know a product is here available which can actually help them, which is, a natural alternative, and they don't need to take allopathic medicine. And or even if they are, like for instance, we have a lot of cancer patients and this is great as an integrative therapy, and they don't know that they have this available. So the biggest bridge I've had to make is education. Now, Bridge, comes your second part, that how do I actually market, which was very interesting because Meta and Google both have completely done a blanket ban on the word cannabis, CBD, marijuana, weed for, like, of course, very obvious reasons. But even though we have our licenses, sent like a million zillion support emails to them that, please let us advertise, got like, I don't know, 10 accounts blocked, and had to restart again. So then we started looking at, if we can't talk about the product in terms of the names, let's talk to the customer with the sense of their um, issues, whether it's sleep, whether it is stress, anxiety, and talking about the plant-based medicine aspect. Now, the interesting thing which I found out over time was that everything was which was blocked by Meta or Google, which was in terms of the word cannabis and CBD.
Hmm.
They didn't block the imagery attached to it. So I made the cannabis leaf my hero. This is, of course, 2 years ago, and Orchid was now there are many influx of many medical cannabis brands which have come in the market. Orchid was one of the first few, first movers in the space. So what we did, and ours was the first brand which actually had the ads active on Facebook, is I used the cannabis leaf as the hero, and that immediately was uptaken by people because especially millennials and Gen Z, they understand this brand. It has a lot of pop culture influences attached to it, and a lot of reverence based, and of course culturally also the cannabis leaf
Hmm.
has a lot of reverence in the Indian culture. So that has been one key turning point for us, for our ads to start working and to get a lot of primary data on how customers are interacting with the ads. So what we've done at our end, because we don't have so much rich data available with us, because A, we're a startup, and B, this category is still forming as we speak. So whatever sales we are getting is the segmentation and the hyper personalization we can do is with our own primary data, which is very limited right now. So we are doing a lot of testing and A/B testing with ads, a lot of personalization, which we are trying to do via our chatbot. So we are really trying to, use AI to our advantage in our customer journey, wherein, because it's a prescription-based product, before the product is dispatched to the customer, they need the prescription from the doctor. But we do provide that prescription, we provide free consultation, but the patients and mostly customers will feel that little lag where they feel slightly, I would say, unmotivated to go through that tedious process. So we have put in a AI chatbot in place to help them through a very quick and efficient checkout where all of their questions are answered, and there is a payment gateway through that, and all of it is a lot more. And we've actually seen almost 60 to 70% conversion uptake which has happened through it. And of course we keep evolving as we go along, but the challenges still remain that it is a segment where prescription is one of our biggest obstacles, number one, and number two, it's a niche segment. So our processes are very different than what general marketing or marketers would be doing, because the hyper personalization part is already happening as we speak, even before the product is dispatched, because every customer who's purchasing a 5100 rupee oil or a 3000 rupee oil is first going to speak to a doctor and ask them, basis their age, weight, and ailment, what is the dosage required. So there's
Hmm.
personalization. So all of that is already happening at our end.
I'll come to you. I mean, I think I need to find more doctors who can give these prescriptions. I think the benefit of all. But I'll come back to you, Richa. Anandji, you know, brands regularly rely on, emotional triggers, right? Joy, nostalgia, urgency. Brands like Durex, they rely on insecurities. They tap into insecurities, right? From your experience, can you highlight a psychological trigger, that's especially powerful yet underutilized by marketers, considering you have a lot of data, as you rightly said. Any real world example or any data insight, that would back this.
Correct. So that's a wonderful question, I must say that, because this particular segmentation of the data, which is never been discussed in general talks. So as rightly Lucky said that, they are doing a lot of data segmentation and stuff like that. So with the data segmentation, there is a lot of metadata mapping which is to be done at the back end. So whenever you are running a campaign, so we are making sure that when we are running a campaign, before setting up a campaign, we find out an objective of a campaign. So in the objective, we are making sure that a particular industry is looking for, let's say, I'll not take a brand that what you said, but I'll focus on the real world example. Let's say I've got a client called Red Bull, and who wanted to know that what has been happened in the sports enthusiast world. So
Hmm.
likewise, in your case, so when you are saying that I wanted to know what is happening for a client like Durex, and it's talking from a safety point of view. So in the setting up, while we are setting up a campaign, we are making sure that we are segmenting that data at the campaign level itself. And there is a nomenclature that we follow, which talks about the segmentation so that when I'm curating my metadata from the platform at the backend, I'm making sure that that data is sitting in a meaningful table on my SQL database so that whenever there is a need, there is a requirement from the business, I can pull that data and provide them a meaningful output that this is how you can utilize this data. And this data is catering to this kind of audiences, or it has been popularized in certain age group, or it has been popularized in certain geographic locations, so on and so forth is easily be identifiable. So this is how the segmentation of data and the metadata capturing with the nomenclature, which helps us to identify the needs of a consumer, and we can repurpose that need by providing them our brand value and brand visibility.
Uh, uh, Lucky, there's a emotion within a consumer called fear, which if it gets embedded, it's very difficult for a brand to overcome. Now, in the past, we saw what happened with WazirX, right? Uh, and suddenly people started thinking that the money they have invested is not safe or secure anymore. Uh, I mean, many people did lose. Even I had an account with WazirX. Um, my question is, when emotions like fear get trapped into a consumer psychology, as a fintech brand, money is a very sensitive topic for a lot of consumers. How do you overcome that? How do you overchange that? And this is a very relevant question, and I would want you to answer in a way that actually talks about deep consumer psychology. How do you overcome that emotion? What is that targeted campaign that you would probably come out with to overcome that?
Yeah, I think you've hit the right nerve when it comes to fintech, right? Fear of losing money, and when it comes to trust, I think outside of healthcare, which I would agree, is usually based on trust. Money is the second place where people really need high trust, right? See, trust is an outcome bridge, right? You don't sell trust by driving saying that trust us, right? It's nobody's going to trust you by saying that. I think the psychology behind the fear of losing money, and therefore what do people seek? I think when people look at anything to do with the transaction of money, they're looking for maybe three things, right? I think the credibility of the institution. So therefore, have you been along for a long time? They're looking for social proofing, because a lot of us invest in places where other people and friends and family invest, right? We always go to places, we always, nobody wants to be the early adopters, especially when it comes to health and money, right? People usually
Hmm.
follow. And I think so social proofing becomes extremely important, right? And that was very micro. Like, we are able to today tell folks who are coming in and onboarding from Bangalore that how many people from Bangalore are on the app. Correct? How many people of their age group, how many people of their background, how many people of their trading style, investing style are invested with us, right? So I think social proofing, stability of the platform, the background, the institution, the longevity of the background and the institution. So you have to drive it upfront, right? You can't hide behind, right? And so social markers, I call them the trust markers. So trust markers upfront everywhere, not just here. Even in campaigns, even in advertising campaigns, need to have social markers, and they should
Hmm.
reinforce in onboarding all the way to the time you kind of do the trade or the first investment, right? So another third point, I think, to drive the trust, or get probably handle the fear that people have, is that you got to be transparent about every single thing. I think transparency is super super important. I think we live in a very high trust deficit age, and that's true, by the way, for all consumers across brands today. We don't have trust on media, we don't have trust on many brands out there. So in this age, how super transparent you are, right, in terms of no, absolute zero stars. In fintech, we call it the star language, right? Which is when
Mm,
you put stars on many places and then you think that, yeah, my star is out there. And so people would have read the terms and conditions. People hate terms and conditions when it comes to money. Correct. So I think removing all of those layers that we are calling it stars and the terms and conditions layer, right? Keeping the offer super simple, keeping the pricing absolutely clear upfront and as simple as that. In fact, yesterday I was talking to one of my team members and we were discussing a price lab for an upcoming product, and it has some
mm,
7 slabs. Okay. And while intellectually it makes a lot of sense because you see how people are moving in slabs and how do they look at pricing. But when I looked at it and said, let's simplify, because people don't want overload of data. People want
mm,
less data. People want less overload. So please simplify wherever you can, right? If you can say that in 3 words, don't use 30 words, please, right? So I think if to answer your case, how do we solve for trust and therefore fear? I think being super transparent in every step of the way, right? Very clearly drive trust markers of the institution, all of our backings, right? Small things matter. Stability of the platform. In fact, Fires is the only platform in the trading industry today, by the way, who actually publicly displays our platform uptime and downtime. In trading and investing, it matters a lot because people lose money even with 1 millisecond of downtime, right?
mm.
Now, it's a very important technology, but very, very few, in fact, I would not know any, who would actually put it out publicly and demonstrate that this is our uptime, which is 99.99%, right? So now you know that when I am trading on a big occasion like an election day, or let's say Mahurat trading, etc., how safe is my money? Now, how safe is my money is to do with the fact that the technology that is backing the transaction is super stable or not. And what is the marker for that, right? The marker for that is downtime and uptime. When you put it out publicly and everybody sees it, I don't think then there is a fear in my mind about me, losing my money. So I think you use the
Mm.
technology to actually tackle those fears upfront and help the user make those choices in a more seamless and easy way. I think that's probably the answer.
So transparency is key. I mean, as you rightly said.
Absolutely.
Uh, uh, to you, Richa, I think transparency is not the key when it comes to consuming cannabis, as most parents would say. But I won't come to you, and my question won't be about consumer psychology. I would want to understand the data from you. I think you are at a very novel position to give us some amazing insights as to what is happening when it comes to the cannabis industry, and how are people approaching it, because once we have that data, I think the next step would be to use technology over that data. So you could just let us.
Absolutely. Firstly, I would really like to commend Lucky because I think he's said it right, bang on the topic in terms of transparency. And to you, Bridge, we are actually very transparent because how we are dealing with it, again, because we are a medical product, transparency and honesty and authenticity of product is very, very important for our customers. So every product batch, the lab report is there. I think perhaps we're the only cannabis brand where each product's lab report is put on the product shop page, in the carousel where they can see it. That's one. Number two, we're doing a lot of testimonials and all of that. Of course, which are verified. But coming to your question in terms of the data, it's actually very interesting to see how over time we've evolved in terms of what we first had in terms of our primary data and the segmentation and the decisions we made basis those data, how they've evolved over time. Because every new product for us, which we launched, like for instance, we've just launched gummies, which we launched on Holi this year, and we're already sold out, and this has perhaps been our best performing product ever. And I did know that the marketing strategy and with which the packaging and the kind of vibe that we launched it with, it will be a hit. But I didn't know it's going to be that big a hit that it's going to supersede our best selling product also. So clearly here format is king, and I didn't think that. I thought the product ingredient in itself would be the king, where people care about high quality cannabis product, and the best way to ingest it is actually oil, but people preferred gummy over oil any day, right? And for me as a marketer, I'm trying to give you something which is more in a purer, not purer format in terms of the gummies being bad, but of course, gummy is coming with plant-based gelatin, more calories, blah blah. But here and there is a oil format which is a lot more purer and better, bioavailability. But they're preferring that. That was one. Secondly, I also noticed that in India, when we launched, we only had like CBD oils for humans and for animals. But in the second year of Orchard, I realized that, we're sitting in India where we're just so used to tablets and capsules when it comes to medicine as a format that, when we come to an oil, we'll care about the taste, we'll care about how it is, or it's kadwa lagega, ye lagega, all of that. But when it comes to capsules, you can give your parents or your grandparents 5 capsules and they will just ingest it without even asking a question what it was. And it's actually so true. So when we came up with, and this is more for the older generation, because we have a lot of children coming, for sleep issues of their parents and pain issues. So when we launched our capsule format, which is Kamasul Plus and Kamasul Normal, we saw that that was actually became much almost equivalent to our best selling product in our oils and almost overtook it. So people especially in the cannabis segment, the data is there to say that format is king, in terms of product uptake. It's not so much the ingredient story, which is what we had initially thought. Format story is also equally strong. And the uptake of products which have a lot stronger word of mouth. I've seen the products which become more viral with customers. Other customers are posting about it on their social media, whether they find it cool or whether they found that product actually helpful. Like, that's again a neuroscience, view to marketing. But the word of mouth part, that really helps us, grow. And that's what I mean. We've not done any influencer campaigns, zero paid influencer campaigns, and whatever ads we've started doing, our budgets, up until even a year ago were less than 1 lakh, right? So we can definitely say the growth has been completely, because of the word of mouth, because of the clients. So format, quality, authenticity, and transparency has worked for us.
No, absolutely. I think it's very refreshing to hear, considering this is a very new category, so the marketing cannot rely on anything legacy. So
Absolutely.
you have to come up with something new every day, to get to your customers. Uh, to our audience, many of you have joined. I would request that you can send in your questions. I think I'll have one more set of questions with the panelists, and then we'll open to audience questions at about 4:45. So please feel free. There's a Q&A box where you are watching this webinar. You can put in your question there. Uh, Mr. Thakur, uh, you know, how do you consult companies? Group M manages a lot of companies, a lot of brands. When it comes to psychological marketing, what is the approach that you take with a company? How do you identify their target audience, the target psychology of that particular audience, and then go in the market?
Yeah, Bridge, thanks so much. So when we are talking about psychology and targeting the audiences, as I've been claiming every now and then that the data plays an important role. So we've got set of data which make sure that when we are talking with the client, we don't go to the client with our ideas, but we understand their requirement. We also make sure that we provide some suggestions based on the ideas. There are trends which are going in the market. So as you say that nowadays the trend is on investment. सही है, mutual fund सही है. There is an investment from crypto point of view. There is an demand from the new age technologies, and there is a demand from the youth
Mm,
to interact and adopt them with our marketers. So we make sure that we go with our strategies in front of them. We do recommend them based on our data. We provide them our statistics that this is how the data is shaped up, and this is how we are assuming that with the help of our machine learning mechanisms, we provide them an intelligence on top of the data,
mm.
which talks about how the data will shape up and how the marketers will be able to win the race that with respect to their products.
Okay. To the audience, I am getting questions, but I would want you to put your names and designations as well. Uh, before I get the questions to my panelists. Um, okay, so back to the session. Yes. So my next question is to you. Lucky. Uh, the fintech industry saw a rapid adoption post-pandemic. A lot of people started investing. Uh, you know, have you employed any psychological techniques like gamification or nudges at fires that have resulted in measurable increases in number of engagement? Any specific techniques and certain concrete outcomes that came out of it?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think post COVID, definitely we saw a massive interest and therefore a very big spike across many asset classes, including crypto and bunch
Hmm.
of things. I think, but fads and trends, two different things, right? But I would say it's a long lasting thing. India is just warming up to the idea of investing and trading. Trading, of course, is a lot more technical and a lot more specialized versus the regular
Hmm.
investing is. Uh, I think when it comes to behavioral nudges, I think some of the things that I think I can list a few for you, and then maybe it'll help the users to understand how to tie a behavioral, economics, or let's say behavioral thinking to an outcome from a product point of view, right? So let's say in fintech, what really matters is psychological friction is more important than UX friction, right? And I think people don't commit too early, right? Of going into the KYC flows and
Hmm.
giving your data, and then the account will be open and all that. So I think what we do is something called progressive onboarding, right? I think it's a simple step. What you do is you understand that people don't want to overcommit or fully commit. So the tip and tactics here is little more, give them a little, let us say guest login is a very simple tip, right? Nobody wants to super commit in the beginning, so we do something like guest logins, or we do progressive onboarding. Other tip is, for example, people generally, would look at, want to know who else in their, in their segment is available, right? For them to kind of invest. Is it too much of commitment in terms of cost, money? Is the price transparent, right?
Hmm.
I think there what we do is we are able to bring out the price proposition very clearly across all steps of the journey, right? So nudges begin from the time you onboarded to when you're doing the first trade, when you add your funds, for example, simple thing, when you add your funds, right, you get to know what are the cost implications to trade, for example, right? So another thing, like, people want to know how much will it cost me, right? And so that should
Hmm.
be upfront available. We drive habit loops, for example, right? So I think fintech products best work when there is an habit loop involved. People would like to come again, people would like to kind of, they invest regularly, they would want to check regularly, right? So another thing is that you have to keep people aware. And so nudges like, for example, how's your portfolio doing, plus one insight,
Also
right?
engaged. Also
Yeah,
engaged.
engaging, very engaging. So you need to kind of draft out this, you to understand, I think, how people interact with money. I think that's broadly the psychology. I think the book on psychology of money is probably, I would refer to that back, that you, if you understand the segment, and if you understand how the relationship with money is, right?
Hmm.
And if you can then put down the pain points or fear or insecurities, or the way they look at money, right? Even the
Hmm.
way they look at how money grows, or how what would their problems be when it comes to handing over their money to somebody else. I think if you just map it down and you do an emotional plus, I think I would say do an emotional journey mapping versus just a consumer journey mapping, right? So when you do an emotional journey mapping, you can actually map it out to a lot of these things. I think last but not the least, I would say, I will keep going back to the fact that you should do more than just demographic and RFM segmentation. You should just do a lot more intent based segmentations. I think that really helps to kind of drive the point across. And there
Hmm.
are many more examples from fintech, I think, in terms of driving trust at every point. I think, driving social proof, driving transparency of the process, right? If, by the way, the biggest thing is, if you do make a mistake, by the way, right, because glitches will happen, right? Funds sometimes do get stuck when it
Stuck.
comes to
Yeah.
fintech. I think it's very important for people to get the first response time right. I think this is supremely important. I think I can't emphasize more. We as people, when it comes to trust and consumers, they really change their opinion when the first response times are good and when a human reaches out.
Hmm.
I think that changes the game completely. Versus, no matter how big a brand you are, if you're not proactive, if your FRTs, which is first reaction times, are bad, and if your response is not uh, informed, which means if you don't know what my real issue was, where was it stuck, and if you don't have the next steps ready for me,
Hmm.
then you are in big trouble, because that means you don't even know me, right? What am I coming to solve? So I would say a bunch of these things come together. But like I said, I keep going back to psychology of money. Know it, know your segment, know the relationship with money, and I think then you can solve it.
Yeah, I think first response time, I think it has always been crucial in a brand's journey. It's always been there. So I think I'll open to questions now. First question is from Naveen Sarpal. He's the Vice President of Product and Marketing at Growth Thinkers LLP. The question is, any industry, including healthcare, staying on top of rapidly evolving technologies and algorithms, measuring the true return on investment across various channels, and effectively targeting the right audience. What's the best way you advise? I think the whole panel discussion uh, is the answer to that. But anybody would want to take it up. Anandji would want to take it up. How do you stay on top of evolving technologies and algorithms, to measure true return on investment?
Yep, correct. Thanks, Bridge, for giving me an opportunity. So, in order to answer that question, as the day the technology and the automations are progressing, every now and then there is a new niche data coming on your plate, and there is a niche data which is getting captured on different intervals. And how
Hmm.
are you interpreting that data into a readable format and just not zeros and ones?
Hmm.
Converting that data into a readable and writable format, which will make a change in the game. So,
Hmm.
as we've been working on our AI and ML technologies, wherein we are training the newly returned data from the platform or from the audiences or from different sources of ours that been housed in internally and then processed the way there are multiple machine learning models which has been ran on top of this data, which gives you a meaningful output that what is the ROAS, I would say that return on ad sales, that how that is going to be working and shaping up. Let's say I'm investing $100 and what is the return on investment that I should be looking. It also based on there are different KPIs that we manage. So let's say uh, we are saying that there is a campaign which is going on Meta. So there are five different approaches from a KPI point of view that plays an important role. Is it for reach and frequency, awareness, branding, traffic, sales?
Hmm.
So all these will give you a different shapes and size of data, and that data is getting into the algorithm that has been built already, and it shows you an output that, let's say, in the current campaign, the campaign is running for 30 days, and out I'm sitting on the 10th day. I'm putting my analysis of 10th day into the model, and model will showcase me that how the brand is going to shape up. Is the campaign is going to be making the throughput what has been expected at the start of the campaign, or do I have to make my gear change? Should I have to increase my speed, decrease my speed, or take left, right, center? So all those analysis can be put forward to the advertiser and take a meaningful decision in order to come into the conclusion and service our KPIs.
Hmm. Um, Next question is from Neha Kapoor. She's a senior brand strategist at Mindweave Consulting. With so much noise in digital, how do you balance personalization without creeping out the customer? Where's the line between smart targeting and being intrusive? I'd put this to you, Richa, and I'd ask the marketer inside you and not the co-founder inside you to answer that.
So it's a great question, to be honest, because we have reached a level where I myself feel that I've even if I've accidentally happened upon a shop page or even on Instagram ads, right? Like all of us, we keep scrolling and sometimes you accidentally touch something, and then I'm just bombarded with retargeting. It's to a level where it's almost annoying, and I completely get it, right? So as a marketer, what we are doing is that obviously on Meta we have this option, right, on view rate, that, after X number of times an ad is shown to a particular customer, if there is no action taken, we stop showing it to that customer, right? So some people and some brands, and of course brands with high money and maybe more persuasion time, they are relentless, right? And they will keep showing it. But I have mapped it to a level where if I there is no action by my customer, even if that action is just a click of going into my shop page, and after they've come to that funnel of my journey and they've gone into the shop page, and in after that, if there are X amount of viewings that we do and he or she's still not taking action, I stop burning. And this, as a startup also, and even as a marketer, I can tell you it has a lot of logic to it, because I'm saving precious monies which I could use on more warm audience, instead of repeatedly showing something to someone who's not interested in. Maybe they
Hmm.
have the intent, right? But I don't want to actually piss off the customer by showing it so repeatedly. Believe me, I've been one of that person who's gotten so bombarded and reached that level of fatigue with something, I unfollow it, that I stop seeing it or unsubscribe to it. Like, it's just almost a breach of privacy, and I completely get that question. So at my end, this is what I'm doing, but I want to reach a level of predictive analysis, to a point where I can know it sure shot that this is someone I should be spending that X monies for. So maybe the fourth viewing was the one they would convert on, but I've put third and I've dropped out. Maybe the fourth would have helped and they would have bought. But maybe that person who I'm showing it to three times is not interested. So even that three is away. So I want to lead to that predictive analysis part. Not yet, but this is what we are doing at our end.
Hmm. So, Vikram Nanda, product marketing lead at Shopverse, uh, to Mr. Thakur, which MarTech stack do you recommend to your clients?
As
HubSpot
of, sorry.
HubSpot versus Salesforce versus Zoho versus.
No, so from a mark from a MarTech point of view, I don't recommend a stack which is like, you will have to build it on your own because you can then shape it the way you are sensing it.
I think that's happening a lot.
Yes, because
Yes.
that's what we are doing because we've been handling so many customers, and if you are going for a off-the-shelf service and off-the-shelf product, that gives you
Hmm.
a different lens that how the product is shaping in the rest of the world or whatever analysis that they have done for their customers. But it is up to you that what and how you are going to be shaping up your product or your MarTech journey that you will have to write on your own. You may
Hmm.
take help from there are multiple partners which are available, and you can also have your in-house technology who can
Hmm.
build it out.
Lucky, do you agree with that? Because I am seeing this argument a lot these days. While there are about 15,000 stacks available across the globe, a lot of people, a lot of brands are actually customizing and making their own stacks. I mean, why not use something which is already available and also can be customized?
I
What's your
think
take on it?
I just feel sometimes we also get too overwhelmed with the whole MarTech tech stack conversation. I think one needs to know the maturity of the organization where you are at. I still tell people you don't need all the stack all the time. I think know your use cases, know what's most important to you. Is it retention, engagement, acquisition? Which part of the funnel are you focusing on a lot more? Are you
Hmm.
early in the stage of the company where you just probably need a good CRM and you don't need anything else? Because, by the way, a lot of tools are doing multitasking today. Segmentation can be done very easily with the CRM tool, and you don't need, let's say, a CDP for doing that today at a certain
Hmm.
scale. Correct. So I think it's not one size fit all. I think know your base stack well, know what is the core stack that you really need to kind of build a strong foundation, and post that I think you add stack based on your use case and actually make a business case of the tech stack. I just feel a lot of people just run into tech stacks by just saying, oh, as if it's just one sort of a race happening and you have to. By the way, I know a startup which had the best tech stack from day zero, and by the way, next 2 years they couldn't even justify the ROI of the tech stack. Nobody's asking question on the ROI of the tech stack, right? You should ask that question. So I think it's
Hmm.
important to know this, and then you know that when a business case of a tech stack is made, then you know that which one to choose. And then, by the way, there is a very clear framework of choice between the five players you can consider, and you can actually change those attributes in terms of the in terms of weightage that you have more than anybody else has, right? And then apply that framework, and you're good to choose.
Hmm. I won't take any more questions to the audience who have put in the questions. I'll make sure that I send it to all the panelists. Uh, for every session that I do, I end it with a rapid fire. And I think let's start. And this won't be related to anything that you guys do in professional life. So keep your brains ready. So Anand, what's the last TV show that you binge watched?
Yeah, great question. I don't watch TV.
Wow, that's good coming from somebody in media.
uh, one hobby that you picked up recently.
Recently, I've been playing cricket since ages, till this
Okay,
age as well, and
wonderful.
that's a great hobby that I have since the childhood.
So do you watch IPL?
Yes, I
That's
do.
technically not cricket, by the way.
Yeah, IPL is like not full-fledged IPL. I watch only the highlights.
Okay. Um, Richa, what's your favorite book or podcast at the moment?
Multiple, like, because I'm like a constant content binger from all angles. But favorite book which I recently finished was Midnight Library. That was very interesting. And as Lucky keep mentioning, it's so funny. Just before that, I finished Psychology of Money. So I'm whatever point he was mentioning, I could easily relate to it because I finished it. I was making notes. That book was actually so good. I was making notes while reading it, even though it was supposed to be an easy leisure read. Podcasts I actually follow multiple I actually do really enjoy the Nikhil Kamath podcast, quite honestly,
Hmm.
because it has a lot of startup information. So I do really enjoy it, and I think that's high quality podcast. Even though people don't like a 3 hour long format, I really do. So that's something I've recently started watching.
Hmm. One app on your phone that you can't live without.
Instagram, not for any other reasons, but because all of my dashboards, all of the ads, my shareability comments, everything. Believe it or
Hmm.
not, 80% of CRM I do as a founder myself. So I have to keep the app on all the time. If you see my screen time, you perhaps will think I'm some high school girl, just having nothing else to do. But actually, I'm working. So that is the favorite app I have. And apart from
Interesting.
apart from that, I'm using other like tools which are easy. Of course, ChatGPT Pro now, which has become very very ingrained in my system. But yeah, that's about it.
Lucky, what's your go-to comfort food after a stressful day? And I'm sure you would have a lot of stressful days at the company.
Yeah, no, I think comfort food is Rajma Chawal. I think, go back to the usual stuff, which and by the way, it comes from childhood psychology, right? All your comfort foods are childhood foods. So you go
True,
back,
true.
you go back to the comfort of home, right? So yeah,
Hidden talent that your colleagues don't know about.
I am a black belt a brown belt in martial arts,
Oh,
which
wonderful.
a lot of people don't know, but which I don't
I'm
tell them, which might be intimidating. So
I'm glad I'm glad this session is not in a physical setting. So anyway, I think that was pretty insightful, thought-provoking session. Apart from the last 5 minutes, which is I think that gave us insights into your lives. Uh, I think today we, uh, I think today it's not just about tools and technology. There's a human layer underneath everything. As you guys rightly said, segmentation is there. Reaching out to your right audience is there without making sure that you're not over bombarding them, from emotional triggers to trust signals, category creation, behavior mapping. I think martech is not just about automation, it is also becoming about empathy at scale.
Yeah.
So a big thank you to all of you, Anand, Lucky, Richa. I don't know why Avi couldn't join. I'll call him, for sharing such sharp insights and, with the real world examples. And thank you to the audience for joining us. Amazing question. Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and most importantly, keep listening to your consumers. See you at the next E4M MarTech Thursday. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Bridge.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See you.